The Salty Six. That's the topic of today's WJTS Inform. Hello, I'm your host, Bill Potter. Joining me in the studio is Jan Dougan, who is the Health and Human Sciences Educator for Purdue Extension of Du Bois County. And we're going to talk about the Salty Six, which, Jan, I'm not looking forward to doing this show because I see already this is what I like to eat. So we'll talk about what is the Salty Six.
So the Salty Six are 6 foods that the American Heart Association has identified as foods that are higher in sodium than other foods. So if you need to restrict your sodium intake, if you have high blood pressure, for example, and the doctor has told you to reduce your sodium intake, these are 6 foods that you should be aware of have higher sodium levels.
And one of them I already see. We'll talk. I'm not sure you'll talk about it, but cans of soup. I didn't realize how much sodium was in cans of soup until I started looking at the label. And that's how you can know with a lot of these items.
Yes.
What about somebody that hasn't been told they have to reduce sodium in their diet? I have never been told to do that, but I'm sure I have too much sodium in my diet.
So we as Americans just really do have higher intakes of sodium in the general population. So it would really be a good idea for all of us to try to cut back, because so many of our foods are highly processed foods, are higher in sodium, and so many of the foods that we like that you mentioned are higher in sodium. So we want to try to be aware of that, and we want to try to cut back on those food choices that we make every day. And you know what? I'm not going to tell anyone that they can't eat something, but we want to eat those foods in moderation, or if we choose a food that's higher in sodium, then our other food choices during the day, we want to choose some foods that aren't so high in sodium.
Okay, and that's really the point here, because sodium is something your body needs. Is that correct? You need to have salt, but it's the amount that we take in that makes a difference.
Correct. It's the amount.
Okay, what's the number one salty?
So
if there is a number one.
There is really not a number one. There is just 6 that have been identified. So we'll first talk about breads and rolls. So oftentimes we don't think of that. We think of this as being a carbohydrate, but we don't think of the sodium content. But again, you were so right, and I'm so proud of you, Bill, for remembering to read the nutrition labels and to check for the amount of sodium. And that's where you're going to find how much sodium is in a food item is on the nutrition label on the package. So check the sodium level, okay? So breads and rolls are one. And, oftentimes we eat several breads and rolls every day. I mean, it's not uncommon to have a bagel for breakfast, a lunch for sandwich for lunch. So right there is 2 of the high salty 6 that we would choose.
Is there a bread that doesn't have much salt?
You have to look at the label. You have to look under sodium, okay? And you have to look at what percentage of sodium is in that food item. I mean, the American Heart Association recommends for healthy individuals or most people to not have more than, I believe it's 1,500 milligrams a day. So, that's kind of hard for people to look at and for people to count. So I just recommend when you look at the nutrition label, you look at the percentage of sodium that food has in it. And if it says it's over 20% of your daily value, then, you might want to rethink that food choice, and you might try to find something that's under 5% of your daily value.
Or just make sure you're eating a lot of vegetables every other meal.
Yeah, good choice. Right. Eat those vegetables.
Okay,
so
next.
Another thing is, and I don't have a real example of this, although we do have pepperoni here, and we do have bologna here. So cured and cold cuts are the other one salty 6 that we need to watch. So again, I'm not saying don't eat them. I'm saying eat them in moderation, or don't eat them all the time every day, okay? So pizza is another one, and oftentimes the foods that we choose, or the ingredients that we choose to put on our pizza, like this beautiful slab of pepperoni sausage pizza here might be a favorite of a lot of people's, and because it has that cured meat, that's one of the reasons why it's saltier. And then it has a crust, so that's bread. So again, it has 2 of the top 6.
And it probably has a processed tomato paste. So
Very-
that in itself is going to have more sodium.
Very likely, very likely. So pizza is one of the 6. Poultry products is another one of the 6. And here's our chicken leg and chicken thigh that we have here. And you know, a lot of times people go, well, why would poultry be one of these products? And again, you need to check the labels of the poultry that you are purchasing to eat at home or to prepare at home, because a lot of poultry today has a saline solution that is injected into the poultry, so that's higher in sodium. So be sure to check your poultry.
Yes, so it's setting in a brine.
Correct.
For the most part.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, yes. So, and then canned soups. You mentioned canned soups. You pointed this out earlier in today's show, and they are one of the salty 6. So check that nutrition label. See how much sodium is on there. This particular one is 25% of the daily value. So again, I'm not saying don't eat it. I'm saying if you eat this, then choose some other foods during the day that are lower in sodium. Your fruits and vegetables would be a good choice.
Well, and like this is 25%. You're going to eat roughly, not that you're going to eat 4 meals, but you're going to eat a breakfast, a lunch, and a dinner, and a snack probably somewhere in there. So this would already take up one of those meals.
Correct.
Because it's 25%, and that's kind of how you configure it.
Correct. And you know, a lot of individuals, you know, if they haven't paid attention to reading labels, they're really not aware of how much sodium intake they have. So that's an aha moment. And if our viewers would just do that for one day, just look at some of your labels, your nutrition labels, and just see some of the foods that you ate that one day, how much sodium was in those foods, and then you're going to know. Then you're going to know, am I on track or am I not on track to reducing sodium in my foods that I'm eating?
And I know, like what we used to call TV dinners, now they're frozen dinners.
Sure.
And there was one time I looked at it, wow, this really looks good. And I looked at the sodium content, and it was 70%.
Wow.
And I thought, holy mackerel, this is basically all I can eat today is this one meal because the sodium is so high.
Right.
And for somebody that's on a low sodium diet, that would not be good.
That is correct. And you know, that's a great way to educate yourself and to have those aha moments where you learn about the foods that you're eating. To really look at those labels and look for just look for sodium. Don't be confused by everything else right at first. Just look for that. The 6th item is a sandwich. And when you think about why would a sandwich be one of the top 6, why do you think, Bill?
Well, it's got lettuce and tomato on it, so that should means it's healthy. But no, it's got the bread. It would have the processed meat, cheese, and maybe even mayonnaise. I've never looked at what sodium was on mayonnaise.
Not too high.
Okay.
But
well, salad dressing, is that different than mayonnaise?
Different how?
Sodium content?
You'd have to check the label
I do
because
not
there's
know.
various ones, and there's a lot of new dressings that are coming out that, you know, the FDA has requested or is requiring that we look at foods and we reduce the sodium content in foods. So food companies are looking at that, and if they can reduce sodium, then they're doing it. Sodium is in foods for a number of different reasons. It has some properties that, you know, make the food, preserve the food, leaven the food. It does different things with our food items that we eat, but, you know, there are other ways that we can make that happen. So food companies are looking at that and seeing how they can reduce that to help us be healthier.
And so you can always look for low sodium.
Sure.
But still, you should turn it around and see what do they mean by low sodium. Because if you're taking a soup that may be 30% sodium, and a low sodium might still be 20%.
So, or that TV dinner that you talked about. If
right.
it was 70% and now you have a version of it that says low sodium, it might be 50%.
Right.
You know, so really, the only way that you really can know is by reading the nutrition facts, the nutrition label on the products that you're choosing to take home, prepare for your family, or to eat yourself.
Is there a food, does all food naturally have salt in it, or is
a lot of foods naturally have sodium in it, and I think if I remember what I read correctly, it's about 10% of our sodium intake is naturally in the foods that we eat. So, you know, that leaves us a little bit of room for other things, but, you know, making this one change in the foods that you choose to eat can really improve your health and well-being. So especially for those viewers who have high blood pressure or have been told by their physician or their healthcare team that they need to reduce sodium in their diets, limiting these 6 foods and how often you eat them and how much of them you eat can really make a difference.
So I can still enjoy these foods. I
Yes.
just got to watch how I combine it throughout the day.
Correct.
Okay, because a loaded bologna sandwich is one of my favorite things. So, especially in the summer. But
Is that fried, Bill?
No, just
No?
just regular. That one I don't fry. Although
Okay.
fried bologna, but still, it's that content of sodium that I should look on the labels to figure that out and kind of reduce my sodium. Which then I've not been told to go on a low sodium, but it can maybe keep me from having be told that if I watch my sodium
That
intake.
is true. That is true.
Well, Jan, thank you very much.
Thank you,
for
Bill.
bringing the Salty Six. The show was not as painful to me and my eating habits as I thought it would be. So I can
Awesome.
still enjoy foods. I should just watch how I do that.
Great.
All right. Thank you for watching WJTS Inform. We've had as our guest Jan Dougan. She is the Purdue Extension Educator for DuBois County, and she is available by phone or email if you've got questions about this show or other shows here on 18 WJTS. Thank you for watching. We're local people watching local people.